I realized a few days ago that it's 20 years this month that I was able to work with my hero. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about my hero. My hero is George Charpak. George Charpak won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1992. And he worked at the ESPCI École in Paris. And I was lucky enough, I'm not a physicist, but I was lucky enough to work on his team and get advice from him. And I think the advice he gave me has carried me through the last 20 years in some ways. George was a very special man. When he was a teenager, he was in the resistance in Paris, and at the age of 18, he was sent to Dachau by the Germans. And he came out of Dachau, and he went to work at the lab of Frederick Judot and Irene Curie, Marie Curie's daughter. And over a couple of years, I would be visiting him, and he started telling me about his hero. And his hero was Marie Curie. And she worked at the same école, and that's where research work was done. And a tale about George, which is quite interesting, is when he won the Nobel Prize, he got a cheque for £950,000. And one night I met his accountant, and he said, you know, the trouble with George, it's about 3 months after he won the Nobel Prize, I was saying to him, where's the cheque? And George said, I don't know where the cheque is. Why would I know where the cheque is? Until he realized he'd never wore the same suit again for 3 months, so he found the cheque in the pocket of his suit. Working with George and talking about Marie Curie, one night he said, we still have lots of her logs upstairs. He said, would you like to come and see them? So, would you want to? So yeah, we go upstairs, and there are these cabinets. And when you go into the room, the cabinets seemed a bit odd because the sort of glass in the cabinets was this strange glass. And he said to me, the problem is they're so radioactive. This is special leaden glass because we can't open them. And in fact, the workbenches that she used to work on, for some reason, got mislaid into some upper floors of the research labs. And 30 years after she died, they decided somebody with a Geiger counter was up on the top floors, and they realized that the workbenches that she'd worked on were actually classed as nuclear waste. So they had to chop them up, and big vans arrived in the middle of the night to whisk these things away. But George loved Marie Curie. And so my claim to fame, I must tell you this. This is a pitch for women, because the Solvay Conference, which took place in 1911, was all the top physics and chemistry people in Europe. And all you have to look at is just one woman. And we've got Einstein, we've got Rutherford there, but Marie Curie is the only one. And Einstein said of Marie Curie, she was the only really normal genius he'd ever met. So my claim to fame is, I knew a man who knew a man who knew Marie Curie. So let me start to talk about Call&Check. Call&Check is, as I said, it's a very simple concept. And it started this is about 2012, when the Postal Service, and I think you've got to remember that every postal service, what we're going to talk about now, it applies to every postal service in every country, and of the population side of it, the same thing applies for. So we're talking about Jersey, but this applies to every country. And the two reasons that came together was, one, the declining letter post that every postal service is experiencing. And by 2020, that will have fallen by another 40%. Now, that's unsustainable. We're going to have a situation where we're just going to be in, postal service is going to be in vans just driving around delivering Amazon boxes. So the postie guy will disappear from the street. And once he's gone, he'll never come back. So that's one issue that every postal has to address. Along with that, in Jersey at that time, there was the White Paper for Health came out. And the White Paper for Health said, we're going to have a massive aging population, and the only way that we're going to manage to look after these people is by keeping them in their own homes as long as possible. So, and if you look at the numbers here, so it's going to go 95% increase by 2040. The taxpayers, just look at the taxpayers. It's going to fall from 3.9 person per one to 1.8. We're not going to be able to pay for this. So we've got to find clever ways to look after our aging population. So the idea was, as the only service provider left that calls on every house every day, we're the only one that's left. Could we use that? Could we evolve the postal service so that it was those two ideas coming together that formed Call&Check? Now, this is only part of what the solution for looking after people in their own home, but I think could be a very important part of doing that. So what we did at Jersey Post was to say, if we're going to do, first of all, I spent about 6 months looking around the world at every postal service, thinking, somebody must be doing this already. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, but to my surprise, nobody was doing it. Postal services are very good at moving boxes around the world. They're sometimes not the best thinking of very inventive ideas of where they could go. So what we decided to do at Jersey Post, I went to the postal directors and the board and said, if we're going to do this, you're going to have to fund a trial because we need a proof of concept. Nobody was doing it. And in their wisdom, they said, okay, we'll back this. So we selected a parish, which happened to be St. Brillard's. It had the right sort of demographic that we were looking for. And we set up a pilot system. Now, this is what Call&Check, so this is a diagram of what Call&Check is all about. Very simple. So we collect referrals for various people who want to go on to Call&Check. We take certain information about the name and address, various contact numbers, key holders that we may contact if there's a problem, and we keep it on a database. Then on a regular basis, they select the days they would like their Call&Check. Our postie, and this is key, the postie has to do it during his normal round. This doesn't work if you evolve a parallel system for doing Call&Check. So it means letter, Call&Check, and it becomes very cost effective. So this is the way it works. So we've now sort of developed, we ask 5 questions on a Call&Check. And the 5 questions are, have you taken your medication today? Because most of the people who are on Call&Check take medication. Have you got your prescriptions? How are you feeling today? So a little chat. Is there anything you want us to pass to the medical people for you? And the last one is, do you need anything? Which could be, can't get to the shops, I need a lift to go to the hospital. And with that, we pass that information to the people who can deal with it. So we are the conduit that passes things around. Our idea is not to become a carer. I say to the posties, we're not carers, but we care. And I say, you can't give posties empathy. Most of them do have it, by the way. But what we do insist upon is that they fill in that information form, because that's what we activate on. So when the postie comes back from his Call&Check, we then, if there's any issues on there, we contact the people who need to be contacted. And it works. So, who's the service for? When we started this, it was in my mind for this aging population and people who were lonely and isolated, and how we could help them. What seemed to happen quite quickly into the pilot were other groups coming to me, like, for instance, people with disabilities, saying, hey, you know, the Blind Society, this would be really good for some of our people. Could we put them on Call&Check? And so, yeah, we started to do that. My most confusing meeting was, there was a room full of people who were talking about Call&Check and various other things. And two young ladies at the back stood up and said, what about us? And I thought, I said, yeah, why? He said, we're young mothers. We're isolated. No, we don't see people. So I sort of took a gulp and thought, well, perhaps we can do that in the future sometime, but not just quite now. So I now say, who's Call&Check for? Call&Check is for anybody who needs it. And I think as time goes on, it will evolve into... I've started to talk to people about Call&Check as a delivery platform that you could start to add things onto. The Postal Service has a great infrastructure for doing this sort of thing. And I think it's shown through the pilot, and we were quite lucky last year, we won the World Mail Award. And that, to me, said other postal services understood what we're trying to do. And that brought its own problems, because all of a sudden we started getting inundated from other postal services around the world about, hey, show us how to do this thing. And we're still learning. We're 18 months in, and we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot with the form that people fill in to sign up for Call&Check. Initially, we had this very simple form, and I gave it to our legal people, and our legal people came back, and it was a 10-page form when it came back, with disclaimers, with 9 pages of disclaimers. So I said, look, I would not sign this document. I wouldn't even read this document. So if we're going to do this, we have to have 1 page. It's got to be simple. And eventually the postal directors agreed and said, we'll go back to 1 page. So and Call&Check as a service has got to be flexible. So, you know, if people want to go on Call&Check, they can go on Call&Check, and they're on the next day. If people want to come off Call&Check, they come off the next day. We're also there for the carers. We've got 7,000 or 8,000 carers in Jersey. These are family members who look after their family. Who helps them? So we can help them. I get quite emotional about this because it's so important. When we talk to the carers, they have a situation where a lot of them, they want to go on holiday. And so they turn around and say, look, we're going on holiday for a couple of weeks. I know my aunt is on Call&Check. Could we put on Call&Check every day while we're away on holiday? And that's what we do. So we put them on, we take them off. So this system works, and it can work anywhere. Has it been successful? Well, the pilot was all about proof of concept. Could we integrate Call&Check into normal postal rounds? We proved we can do that, and it works well. Did people want it? That was a definite, that people wanted it. Our only problem was, because we chose Bullards, I've got 200 or 300 applications from other parts of the island saying, can we go on Call&Check? And I said, we're not in your area yet. And as a postal service, it's meant to be a revenue earner. So, I had my restrictions by our director saying, you can't keep putting a lot of people on here. But it is a success, and it works. So, and these are sort of one or two of the comments that we get back from the people that we look after. So, what next? Next is, and there is a good part about it, the states have agreed to help us roll it out across the island. So, from next month, we're going to do that. And then, on top of that, as I said before, we've got the situation where other postal services. So, at the moment, we're advising these various countries on Call&Check. And I think in the next year to 2 years, they will all start doing Call&Check. And as the First Minister says, it's actually a Jersey Call&Check. So I said, okay, if you're going to help pay for it, it's Jersey Call&Check. So that's where we are. And I think when other countries start to use Call&Check, it will fill such a gap in this area of the aging population. And it will develop. You can just see it. When you start to see the people using Call&Check, you can see where it could start to go. You could see where you could start to help these people in their own homes, because they want to stay in their own homes. They don't want to go into nursing homes. They may have to do eventually, but we can delay that, and we can give them a reasonable support mechanism. We have to work with the other health professionals and the voluntary services who are great. But sometimes we need joined up writing when we're doing this and work together. Sometimes we don't work together. But I think we can learn how to do it. And I think Jersey could be a great place for people to see how we can do that. Thank you.